This is Garis, masculist, MGTOW flyers, that is 2-3 page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 550, part 2, entitled "Only 7% of British women declare themselves as feminists." So continuing straight on. Masculists push for the establishment of GECs, that's GECs, that's Gender Equality Committees, in the parliaments that consist half of female feminists and half of male masculists, so that the gender political issues of both sexes are dealt with equally. I'm learning from my own experience that women seem to be rather callous towards men, not empathising with men, when it comes to women's many gender crimes against men that last decades. So masculists anticipate that soon, when masculism goes into the media and well into the general public, that a lot of feminists are going to utterly reject the masculist claim that in effect women oppress men far worse, since many of women's gender crimes against men last decades, making them a lot more serious than the relatively milder gender crimes that men commit against women. For example, even rape, which is one of the worst ways that men oppress women, is seen by masculists as being rather small beer in comparison to women's decades-lasting gender crimes against men, especially the big three of manslavery, divorce, rape, and forced paternity. The feminists have had a monopoly over gender politics for the past 6 decades, in which they have been pumped full of the dogma that gender oppression is a one-way street, that is, that women are the oppressed and men are the oppressors. So to now be told by masculists that the reverse is more the case only sends them into cognitive dissonant paroxysms. So the masculists, those politically minded masculist activists, are anticipating a vociferous reaction from the monoconscious feminists, that is the MFBs, that's monoconscious feminazi bigots, that is the shibbers equals SHB equals sexist hypocritical bigots, who will be hotly opposed to the claims of the masculists, the politically active masculists. A monoconscious feminist, by definition, has only had her feminist consciousness raised, so tends to be angry at men for the ways that men oppress women. She is not bi-conscious, that is, she has not had both her feminist and her masculist consciousnesses raised, so has not had her feminist anger at men cancelled by her female masculist anger at women for the ways that women oppress men. Her monoconsciousness makes her rather feminazi bitchy and repulsive to be with for a man. So most men have nothing to do with monoconscious feminazi bigots, that's MFBs, who are closed-minded to the idea that gender oppression is a two-way street. Normally, men have to be nice to women because men want to penis women. Women's only real attraction to men are their vaginas. If you take away the sex, the great glue between the sexes, then probably within a month most men would totally ignore women. But masculists do not want to penis MFBs, shibbers, because masculists hate them. Masculists are at war with them and aim to wipe them out by punishing them severely, by totally ignoring them for their massive gender crimes against men. Men are smarter than women by an average of 4 IQ points, have 10% larger brains, and are hugely more aggressive, with 10 times the testosterone levels in their blood compared to women. So when masculists get angry at monoconscious feminists, they can get extremely angry due to their much greater testosterone levels and greater physical strength. Women don't have the luxury to be extremely verbally violent towards men, since there is always the risk for them that the man she is abusing will explode in physical rage and really hurt her physically. So soon, once there are several million masculists of the active, politically ambitious kind, then there will be many bitter gender political confrontations between monoconscious feminists and bi-conscious masculists, particularly on the campuses, where these bitter ideological disputes will most probably come to boiling point first. So to hear from Milo that only 7% of British women accept being labelled feminists is most encouraging for politically minded masculists like myself, since it will make the task of the masculists in masculisting society much easier. If the majority of British women see feminists as man-haters, then that means that this majority of women should be more open to the claims of the masculists, that gender oppression is a two-way street, and that in fact women oppress men worse than vice versa, given that many of women's gender crimes against men last decades, for example, the big three mentioned above. The gender politically active masculists can then appeal to this majority of women, teaching them how women oppress men, and be more likely to get a receptive response from these women. Since only 7% of British women declare themselves as feminists, then the masculists will probably have the luxury to ignore them and push their masculist case to the female majority of women who declare themselves to be non-feminists. Masculists can also target the currently monoconscious male feminist boyfriends of the monoconscious feminists, teaching these boyfriends the basic ideas of masculism, thus converting them to become bi-conscious. If their feminist girlfriends do not become bi-conscious faster than their boyfriends, then their bi-conscious boyfriends will become disgusted with the monoconscious bigotry of their girlfriends and dump them. When millions of monoconscious feminists lose their boyfriends due to their monoconscious feminazi bigotry, then that will stop them in their tracks and force them to think that maybe there are some advantages to being bi-conscious, since the bi-conscious feminists seem to be better able to hold on to their boyfriends than the monoconscious feminists. It was music to my ears to hear Milo say that only 7% of British women declare themselves to be feminists, since that implies that the majority of British women will be a lot more open to the masculist case than will MFBs, whom the masculists despise and severely punish by totally avoiding them. I suppose most women are aware that it's virtually impossible to be both a full-time careerist and to raise very small children at home at the same time. Most women are aware that life is much easier when they have a man in their lives who helps his woman financially when she has small kids. If a woman is a man-hating feminist, then the odds of her keeping her man are much lower, in brackets, especially in an era of rising masculism, close brackets. So most women use their common sense and make an effort to be nice to men, and will listen to men, that is, to masculists, complaining how women oppress men, and be willing to vote with men for the setting up of the GECs, Gender Equality Committees, so that millions of men can be liberated from women's decades-lasting oppression of men. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. Author of the book Masculism, Men's Rebellion Against Being Man's Slaves to Women, an e-textbook of 550 plus masculist flyers for men's studies courses, freely downloadable in Microsoft Word format from my website. Ciao.